Hey folks, MasakoX here. Before we continue the story of Cooler becoming canonically good, it would mean the world to me if you could take a look at my refreshed Patreon at patreon.com/MasakoX, where there are two simple tiers. It would be great if you could take a look at the pinned comment below or a link up here. Anyway, let's get on to the Cooler story. There was a lot that Commander Sorbet had to accept in a very short period of time. Not only was there a whole divine trans-warp system existing in the Rapper system, it was also connected to other universes. Other universes. Not planets, not galaxies, entire universes. Not only that, but apparently, there were also 12 of them at the moment, and the way King Cold explained that to his faithful servant could indicate that this number was impermanent. The funny thing is, Sorbet, that this system was originally established to move between our universe and the demon realm. But if you have the right credentials, you also can use it to gain passage to the other universes. It used to be easier a long time ago, or so I heard. The demon realm? But this isn't the place when we... Sorbet had to come to terms with the most insane journey he had ever had. The experience was hard to describe for a Morty, as they were hurled more than any existing drive could propel any ship by some giant fish, no less. King Cold just laughed softly, clearly enjoying the confusion of his underling. No, the demon realm is of no interest to me. No. The place we have just traveled is the twin of our own universe, labeled with the number 6. Ours is 7. Twin universes? So it is a thing. What does it... The commander's curiosity was getting the better of him. Focus, Commander. We have a long journey ahead. I have no time for your silly questions. And it wasn't a simple trip. All the maps that the systems of their vessels had were meaningless, mostly because they didn't apply to the universe that the ship was currently in. It was confusing, as some things were different, but some things were the same. True, there were some planets that Sorbet could recognize, but it seemed like certain events had carried out themselves differently. Much to his surprise, the commander noticed that his king was doing the large part of the navigating. He clearly knew how to do this, though some of his calculations were mere approximations. From what he did manage to gather while listening to some open broadcasts, this universe also had an empire with a really popular ruler named Frost. Apparently, he was a local hero who was saving a lot of lives and was very actively defending his citizens from pirates and similar scum. Or at least, it seemed that way. Are we trying to recruit this whole Frost Empire, sire? Sorbet wasn't sure if this was smart to say. Just fly the ship, Commander. It's a need-to-know only basis for now. You will find out in time what my reasoning is for all of this. A lot of things around here were questionable, as the Empire seemed way too lavish at times. It lacked that militaristic edge that Sorbet had grown up to love. Were they the right allies against Cooler? Was His Highness so desperate to ally himself with these people? But he shouldn't doubt him. After all, he managed to revive both him and Lord Frieza, though sometimes he wondered if the younger of the two rulers held a grudge against him for that. Still, they both agreed that it would be the smartest course of action to keep his return hidden. And one thing that Sorbet had to give King Cold right now was that no one would have thought to look for them in a different universe, since surely they didn't know another universe existed. Most entities back home were just none the wiser. And there they were, cruising this universe like they were some sort of what? Nomads? Emissaries? In an entirely alien new world that Sorbet knew nothing about? Was it that truly alien though? The languages were similar, as their translators were able to provide the right meanings without a fault. Tuffles, Namekians, even those blasted Saiyans were there and thriving apparently. How did the king expect to get any help in a realm where those filthy monkeys were so dominant? Sorbet cursed himself in his thoughts. He was just hungry and exhausted. This is what had caused these ridiculous doubts, absolutely. The king had a plan, plain and simple. It was just too elaborate to his puny mind trying to comprehend. Finally, after weeks of a seemingly aimless journey, they arrived on a planet called Noise. It was a thriving metropolis with countless skyscrapers and floating banners advertising a plethora of products. It was weirdly overstimulating. King Cold decided to put on a cloak with a hood that would sort of cover his entire massive visage, although the hood itself had to have holes for, of course, his rather horny horns. For Sorbet, a simple poncho was provided. As they traveled the streets, the commander could see the inhabitants of the universe, with some of them being representatives of the species long considered to be extinct back on their home turf. It was a very odd feeling seeing them just going about their business where he had previously seen them in history books, especially since it seemed that their goal was a huge imposing building which had a logo slightly resembling the old emblem of the Cold Force but blue. And when his scouter managed to translate it, the name was spelled out as Ice Media. There was a bell ringing for Sorbet. As they approached the entrance, King Cold made sure to remove the hood, which stopped guards from asking any questions since, well, he looked like their master. And from their expression, Sorbet could say that before his master revealed his face that they were going to ask a few questions that might cause problems, possibly. Still, they were not going to be standing in their way right now. As they slowly approached the front desk, the worker smiled politely. She was a bright-eyed tuffle in formal wear, and some of her micro-expressions also betrayed a certain surprise or even shock. "Hello, sirs. Welcome to the Ice Media Corporation HQ. Do you have an appointment?" "Not really, but tell Mr. Ice that King Cold is here." The king smiled gently, very, very courteous. "Wait, my lord, Ice? As in that?" The rest of the question was muffled because the massive hand of his leader had covered his entire mouth. "I'm afraid that he's really busy and has a rather full schedule today. I could fit you in 2 weeks, maybe for the next month." A droplet of sweat traveled through her face, trying to remain cool. But King Cold was cooler and made a few steps toward the desk, still smiling, still polite. "I insist. Tell him now. If he learns that I am here, I'm sure he'll be able to make an exception for me." The former ruler opened his hand and ever so slightly started to form the smallest energy blast possible. It was big enough, though, for the front desk to notice. "I'll check. Oh, one moment." The woman was terrified but tried to remain cool as she opened the comms. "Mr. Ice, sir? This is the front desk. I know that you don't wish to be disturbed. Yes, I know. I told them so. But this nice gentleman introduced himself as King Cold and... Oh, of course, sir. As you wish, I understand." The tuffle desk lady was visibly relieved, as this was not going to be a nefarious situation, as something heavy lifted from her. Then she returned to the more confident tone. "Forgive me that you had to wait, sirs. This way to the elevator, please. It will bring you to Mr. Ice. I wish you a pleasant stay." "Thank you." King Cold smiled and nodded, relieved that no one had to die right now, taking Sorbet with him to an elevator which was far too big and was traveling way too far to be a simple public transportation vehicle. "So, my lord," the commander tried to ask questions. "Hush, Sorbet. What did I tell you? Focus. You'll get your answer soon enough." As they finally arrived, they were welcomed by 2 guards, looking not that dissimilar to some of the royal guard that the commander previously left guarding the bunker. There was one difference, though. Can you guess what it was? It was because they were blue, with black accents instead of purple. And the room they were guarding was an office with an insane amount of screens and monitors. A lot of them were following the news, with the majority heavily pushing the tidbits about the brave, magnificent Frost and his recent heroic deeds on planet Myonai. And behind the desk, which was in the center of it all, there was a man. He was akin to a spider in the heart of his nest, weaving new strings and watching flies getting caught. Except he was clearly of the same species as his ruler, King Cold. "Hello, brother." King Cold smiled widely. "I see you made yourself comfortable in this universe." There was a short pause as this other individual rose from his chair. He was as tall, if not more so, than King Cold, but his shoulders were slimmer and his skin was of a very pale blue, white almost. Most of his wardrobe and traditional bio-armor also kept the same color scheme as his guards. The individual returned the smile. "What kind of desperation brought you here, brother?" And even though this individual sounded like a leaf on the wind, somehow his voice came through all of those transmissions. Oh yes, he truly existed. Lord Ice, brother of King Cold, son of the old Emperor Glacier. Later on, they were given chairs and some sustenance. So, you are telling me, brother, that one of your sons has eliminated the other after you were brought back by Dragon Balls, and that he is successfully leading the Empire for years? How is this a problem? Ice smirked, resting his chin on the top of his palm. The commander thought to himself that he sounded rather condescending, but it wasn't his duty to question the discussion between the members of the royal family and the breed. I do not quite agree with his ruling style, you see. I do believe that it needs correcting, and I don't think he will do it freely, Cold explained calmly. Sounds like someone I know. Years ago, when we decided that we were not going to play father's games and be pitted against each other, we went our separate ways, as you might recall, with our own separate methods. It worked well for both of us, didn't it? Father is long dead, and we're here ruling worlds. Maybe you should embrace what Cooler is doing. Personally, I allow my Frost to take all the spotlight. You don't need to rule a galaxy when you can own it. I smiled wider. He took the side of an enemy who killed me and was responsible for Frieza's death. He might be successful, but the betrayal of kin isn't something that should be forgiven lightly, Cold responded, a little bit frazzled. All right, that I can at least understand. I shrugged. What is it to me then? What do you expect from me? Well, my methods have proven to be unsuccessful. Both myself and Frieza have trained and increased our power tenfold, but even that has proven to not be enough. Of course, I could find a place where I could expand my power even more. That would be one thing. I may know someone really desperate for a trainee, let's say. The neighborhood is rather dreary, but it potentially connects with a rather high position. I smirked. Oh, really? How high, you say? Cold raised an eyebrow. Of a divine kind. The CEO of the media corporation looked at his brother. Getting you there would be a rather tad painful, but I would do that as repayment for my own debt. But I can see that you are not finished. Yes, surely Universe 6 has powerful individuals that could, dispatch my son, or at least put him in line, because I have heard some rumors. Cole leaned over. Oh, did you? Well, he does certain odd jobs in other universes. Not even the gods question his skill set outside of this realm. But I have to warn you, he is quite costly. Ice got serious for a moment. If he eliminates Cooler for good, you can take his empire and do whatever you want with it. Expand your company into my universe. Fine by me, Cold said, trying to remain cool but starting to get a little bit annoyed. My lord, the empire! We were here to save the empire, not sell it off! Sorbet shouted out in a terrified disbelief. Ice looked at his brother, who sighed deeply. May I be my guest? Cold gestured politely towards Sorbet. Commander, I believe you should calm down. Everything we do here is to serve the royal dynasty. He placed his massive hand on Sorbet's shoulder. Really? The commander uttered, as he felt the tiniest of pricks from a spot on his body that was covered by Ice's palm. Unfortunately, you are not part of it. Sleep well, brave commander. Ice patted him on the back. Sorbet's vision then got blurry as he started to gasp for air. He tried to beg King Cold for mercy, but he was ignored as he quickly collapsed onto the ground and stopped moving. One of the guards just dragged his body away from the sight of the two rulers as if he were just a thing on the floor, a stain. Poison needles? Really? Cold grimaced at his brother's wrists. An elegant solution. They don't have to be lethal, you know. We're just testing different options, but to be fair, why do you assume I would like to have whatever would be left of our father's empire? As you've said yourself, I've made myself comfortable over here. I smirked. Because you would enjoy the intrigue, brother, and think what your multimedial company could do across multiple universes. You could control the flow of the information. The heaters are already out of the way. Cooler's doing, I presume. He really is efficient, isn't he? Ice chuckled softly. He is. It'll almost be a shame to see him die, but betrayal is costly, we both know that. Ice drummed his fingers on the desk, playfully. Oh, I don't know if I should get involved, but on the other hand, it does seem quite delicious. But keep in mind that if you could have been brought back by Dragon Balls, so can Cooler in the future. Ice furrowed his brow. Well, considering that they were quite recently used, and our intel shows that they do have some sort of a cooldown period, it will give me time to prepare in case they do try something silly. Besides, from what I have heard, even some gods are afraid of this asset of yours. He is a good asset, but do keep in mind he is rather independent. Ice nodded slowly, reminding Cold of the drawbacks. But I can sense that pitting him against Cooler is something that intrigues you, brother. I can hear it in your voice. But pitting him against Cooler is something that does intrigue you, brother. I can hear it in your voice. Cold smirked and extended his hand for a handshake. Perhaps. Ice smiled and shook the hand of Cold. The assassin named Hit was used to getting the attention of high-profile clients. They were usually quite basic in their wants, but it is not very often that a destroyer god pays you a visit and asks you to take part in some sort of multiversal tournament, only for then the CEO of the biggest media corporation in your universe to then ask you to eliminate a target within the realm you are going to compete against. Maybe those two birds could be killed with one stone. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now.